Welcome to the Relationship Economy. I'm Jay Deragon, and this is part of the Social Media Connection Broadcast Network. Today I have with me David Bullock.
Hey, Jay.
And we have Dan Robles coming in through Skype from Seattle. Dan, welcome.
Thank you, Jay. Good to be here.
And today we're going to have a conversation. It's going to be an interesting one, to say the least. And we're going to talk about what everybody keeps being concerned about, and that is the ROI on social media. Go figure. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, at first, David, I want to present to you, in all the dialogue going on social media and ROI, what is your particular perspective on it? What should people be thinking about?
Well, first of all, a conversation inherently has no value until you actually do something with it. So, having a conversation is just exchange of words, exchange of data. Data doesn't become information until you've done what? Done something with it, interpreted it, and then it becomes information you can make decisions with. So inherently, social media, the conversation piece of it, inherently, with just a conversation, let's ensue some action, nothing there.
Well, thanks, David. You tell me my conversations are worthless.
No, I'm not saying that. Our conversations lead to action. They lead to transaction. They lead to sales, leads, deals. You know, it leads to something, some action. That's what makes a conversation valuable.
Let's ask Dan Robles sitting out there, because he's been pretty provocative about this. Do you agree with that perspective, Dan?
Well, funny you should ask. Today on Twitter, I heard a statement: "A vision without action is a hallucination."
Come on, there you go.
Somebody famous said that, but I don't think ROI works too well. ROI is a static measurement. It's a projection into the future, whereas social media is more projection to the past. The ROI model does not work. I believe that people are trading options. People are looking at social media and they're collecting options. That is the right to act in the future without the obligation to act in the future. This has value, and I believe that is the value that people are seeking on social media. They're calculated a slightly different way, but they are fundamentally different.
Okay, guys, well, let me ask this question. There are lots of brands who are discovering ways to monetize their conversations. So they're creating an ROI from social media, yes or no?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, a brand, typically what we find is that a brand using social media, because they already have a fundamental stake in the marketplace, people know, like, and trust them already, they can use social media to augment their current situation. Whereas if you're a small situation, a small company, you don't have any presence in the marketplace, you're going to have to work hard just to get people to know that you exist.
Well, you know, Dan, we've been talking that part of the exchange in social media is the exchange of knowledge. So if we're talking about an ROI on social media, shouldn't it be relative to the knowledge gained? What say you?
Well, true, but I believe there's a very important dynamic here. There's a time function. Your ROI equation can be just thrown off the racks by any instance that happens in between. It's called reflexivity. And social media has given us this tremendous social power to reflect, or to have a reflection. So if something comes out in the news and people respond to it, all the ROI in the world can predict the future, but they can't predict that person's response. They cannot predict that social movement that could occur. So there's a time function there, and ROI works very well for these long-term projections, but it does not accommodate for changes in the assumptions that are made for ROI, which brings us to an interesting point. There is a very dire need to define those terms: information, knowledge, and innovation. They are deeply and they are profoundly related. If you don't have one of them, you can't have the other two. So we've got these definitions floating out for those terms which are not accurate. What we've done in Genesis Project, we tried to simplify that. And we know that information are facts and data, and David fully agrees with that. But we also understand that knowledge is the rate of change of that information over time. Now, Google demonstrates that with their spiders. Their spiders go out and look for changes in information, and they use that as a proxy for knowledge. And that's interesting, very interesting.
Wow, you know, Dan, you mentioned something there that I think would deserve a whole discussion. That is a reflection. You know, when you put something out in the social media space, or when the news industry puts out news, the consumer, you and I, we are attracted to that news, and then we reflect on it with an opinion. And we either, that reflection can be called a spin, or can be called an interpretation that makes it different than what its original state was. Correct, Dan?
Exactly. It's been transformed in some way.
Powerful.
Wait a minute. And so, what I'm listening, and again, you all are using different language here. When you reflect on data and interpret it, you're adding value to it. And I think that's the piece that social media allows people to do very readily. Add value to the information of the data which is in the marketplace. Now, that piece of the time value function, you don't know what's going to go viral. You don't know what's going to take off. I mean, you don't know, but you have to put something out there and then watch and see what it's going to do, which now takes you back to the function of monitoring the conversation, monitoring the data, monitoring the context and the content that's in the marketplace. So, I mean, I think they're all working together. Information, knowledge, reflection, the media itself, and then the dynamic nature of it, all of it working together, I think lends itself to a very interesting and dynamic conversation that I don't think we're going to be able to get to in one sitting.
You know what?
Sure, we can get to it right now. Scrap ROI. Get rid of ROI. It doesn't talk about it anymore. It doesn't make sense. Options. The option is the ability without the obligation. Now remember, the right to move on something is an asset. An obligation is a liability. People are out there collecting the right to move, not the liability of having to move. So what you just told me was that you put something out, and then you have to see if change your mind in a few minutes, and then whatever happens to that, you change your mind again. Each single time, you've got an option to act without the obligation to act.
Understood.
Now there's a way to value those, and there's a calculus out there for doing that. I believe we need to investigate that.
Let's tell you what, gentlemen. Both of you have a mind-brain set that's way over my pay grade. So I'd like us to come back and continue with this discussion about options and how you put value on those options. Because the options, the exchange of knowledge, the option to do something seems to be getting closer to creating a return. Would you agree?
I would say so.
So, Dan, thank you for taking your time today. David, what do you all say about us doing another discussion around this?
Sounds good.
Dan?
Thanks a lot. I'd love to do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. I hope you've enjoyed this discussion and it stirred your thought. Join us again because we're not going to stop here. We're going to carry on. Have a good day.